Hi everyone, and welcome to Dark Matters. Today the sun is shining, the birds are singing, and as much as I would love to be outside reveling in nature's backyard, working on my non-existent British tan, I'm doing something far more important, vitamin D or no vitamin D. Today we are inside recording this new series with none other than my co-host Jonny Standing, and we are more than thrilled to have Neil Bentley back with us. Neil graciously helped us kick off the second series of Dark Matters with a two-part extravaganza that delved into the deep, dark recesses of his 25 years worth of research into our origins, the history of Albion, Ireland, Scotland, and beyond. So today, backed by popular demand, we are going to be deep diving Sirius in all its symbols, sigils, narratives, and codes. And as I always say, how can we begin to heal from a past that has been purposefully hidden from us so that we labour under deception after deception, concealing who we truly are? This series aims to dive deeper into the topics discussed in our previous episode, giving Neil the platform to share even more of his amazing research. But first, let's hear from Jonny and then we'll get started. Over to you, Jonny.
Afternoon, everyone. Hi, Neil.
How are you doing?
Great, thanks. The last one we were on, really enjoyed it, which sent me end a little bit west. And I got to tell you, since then, I've been doing a little bit of research myself. And you have to forgive me, Neil, because 24 years of research compared to just a couple of weeks, there's no real comparison. And I keep coming across a rabbit hole which turns into splits into 3 or 4 different tunnels and goes off everywhere. And I've just gone, oh my God. I mean, it must have took 25 years, because the things that I'm coming across, if there's a lot of contradictions by certain experts, isn't there, and stuff like that. But mainly, overall, I've got really, really interested in everything you've been saying. And I hope that now we get to hear a lot more of it. So thanks for
that. You're welcome. In fact, part of the introduction is going to be to explain the contradictions that you keep coming across and why they're so confusing and they're so hypocritical.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Neil, the floor is yours. So we're going to start off, like we say, with Sirius. Like I said, there was so much information packed, and that's why we did it in the two-parter. And it is literally by popular demand as well, not only for me and Jonny, because we're just like, wow, to deep dive it with you, but people have actually asked us to do this. So yeah. So Neil, how do you want to start? I've literally not prepared any questions. I'm just gonna listen myself and develop things in my mind as I go, and that's as simple as I can put it.
Okay. Right. Well, before we actually get to Sirius, I need to do a quick explanation of the entire thing first. Firstly, I've broken it down. I'm looking on this as a lesson, and the only way I can teach a lesson is by being a tradesman, because I've been a tradesman my entire life, and right now I see you two as apprentices. You've had day one, the last one that we did. So you've come back for day two, which I'm absolutely shocked with. I didn't scare you off completely. So if I was teaching you as an apprentice to fit a kitchen, the first thing I'd say to you is I'm going to run through this. I'd imagine it's going to take 2 hours, something like that. And by the time I get to the end of it, you're going to remember about 5% of it. No, you won't remember. You'll want to remember all of it, but you won't. You'll remember about 5% of it. You might have a page full of words that you kind of remember what they were doing, but no, the vast majority of this you will forget. And that I'm totally expecting. But on the advantage, we've built in marketing to this. This isn't 3 facts over an hour. This is 300 facts over however long it takes. So a little bit like Atlantis Island or the Bible and the Pyramids. That is just 7 hours of just bang, 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 fact, 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 fact. And you've got to keep going back over it. So hopefully we'll have multiple viewings of this as people keep going in to remind themselves of different words that they've forgotten about. Right, apprentices. This is the first time I've ever put this together. I've been working on Sirius alone as a topic on its own for about 5 years, but I only ever did this, as I explained to you when I first started talking to you, I only ever did this for myself. It was just my own little corner of the field, my own little insane world, putting all this stuff together, and then suddenly you look up and you go, no one else is doing any of this. No, none of this information is out there. And that was the point when I was starting to think about making videos for myself, and then I bumped into you. You showed such a keen interest in it. It's like, right, well, let's run with it and see where it goes. The entire theory that we put out last time we talked was a brief overlook of the entire theory. Now we're going into it with some more details. I know the part that you're interested in, Ireland, Atlantis, Britain, etc. All that work is other people's work. I'm just riding on the shoulders of other researchers, Michael Sarian, Commons Beaumont, Conor McDarry, Anna Wilkes, Robert the Bruce. That is just a culmination of all their works. And with that on that side, my work would be Ho Hill and the Voynich manuscript. That's the only bit of that that's mine. Everything else is somebody else's. This section is all mine. Now, I've never been to Sirius, and all the work that I'm putting out is just stuff that I have found on the internet and then just put it all together myself. So I'm not riding on the shoulders of anybody else when it comes down to doing this stuff. Right, your hypocrisy of things that don't work with each other. Have you heard of flamenco, Antonio flamenco?
Like you meant the dance?
No.
No, I can't say I have.
You've
Just
heard
the
of
dancing.
You've heard of the missing 1,000 years and the fabricated timeline?
No. You, Jonny.
Okay. Researcher called Anatoly Fomenko. He Russian researcher, and he noticed how many times deities, countries, civilization were copied and plagiarized and overlapped onto other places, and this fabricated timeline had come up with. He worked on this, I think it was 10 researchers for 10 years, something like that. It was a significant amount of work. And then when he finished it, he published a book. And the summary of his work was there was an extra 1,000 years added to the timeline. He was partly right with that. He was partly wrong with that. Yes, I would say 1,500 years, because 500 BC is when the Gaelics came to Wales and Scotland, and when the Celts went to Ireland. That was about 500 BC, and Pope Adrian gave Henry II ownership of Ireland to 1155. So you have about a 1,500 year period there, which is predominantly Britain's golden second age. That is the time period which was hidden. This is what Fomenko found, and he just presumed that 1,000 years had been added to it. And then this is why everyone's running around going I611, J611. There's an M chopped off here, there's a C chopped off there. There's been 1,000 years added to the timeline. No, there's been 1,000 to 1,500 years hidden from the timeline, with a false timeline put over the top of it, which is what you now find the hypocrisy of. So, like I say, on the first one, that's an easy one, would be this fabricated timeline would tell you about the Phoenicians, Phoen, whereas the real timeline is the Phoenicians. And you don't need to change many words or dates or anything to really confuse people. Another very simple one. The Anunnaki landed in Ireland. The Anunnaki landed in Iran. Now, Sumeria, Mesopotamia, they're all in Iran. So as soon as you say that, your brain goes out to the Mediterranean, out to the Middle East sort of thing. So we'll just put a little caveat on that. One of the names from Ireland is Inis Eran. Inis Eran. And if you translate Eran using ancient Hebrew or ancient Irish, as they're the same language, Eran turns into Iran. So the Anunnaki landing in Iran Island is true. The Anunnaki landing in Iran in the Middle East is part of this fabricated timeline that confuses everybody. So that's, you just change a letter here, change a word there, move something around, and then all of a sudden the story gets so confused. So this is why we keep saying that sort of 75% of what we're taught is true, but 25% of it is just a fabrication. An easy one with that. The Eurovision last week, or even Charles's painting. The Elvins, are natural psychopaths. They've been born that way since they were a fetus. It's just their mindset. It's the way they are. It's the way that they live. So when you had the King Charles's painting or the Eurovision, you've got all these idiots come out and they're all doing satanic dances, 5 stars here, horns there. Yeah, no issue with that, because well, that's just the fabricated timeline. That's just the pantomime. The problem you have with that is that a few days later, you've got 1,000 truthers, researchers, all producing videos talking about Satanism and satanic worship and 5-pointed stars, etc., without realizing that all these words that they're using are part of the fabricated timeline. They're just fabrications. So with the Charles painting, the number of times that I saw the word Baphomet, it's the Baphomet, it's the Baphomet, it's the Baphomet, without anyone actually realizing that it was Elvis Levi that created the Baphomet, fictionalized it in 1850 using Cernunnos, the Irish horned hunter god. So there is no Baphomet. Same with Baal. Baal goes back to Bel, goes back to Belenus. Belenus is the Irish fire god. That's why they have bonfires on Beltane. No, there's no children getting burnt there or tortured or anything. This is the fabricated timeline that is put over, which confuses everybody. So the way I look at that timeline is you've got people like Hancock, Hitchin, Sagan. They are the paid shills. All you will ever hear from them is this fabricated timeline of the Anunnaki being out in the Middle East, the Phoenicians being the Mediterranean Sea people, etc. I look on that as being primary school stuff. And we won't be doing anything on the primary school stuff today.
Is that the pre-Christian Gaels or whatever?
Gaelics,
they worship Bel. They worship Bel, which is extremely similar to Baal with the Canaanites, isn't it? Which Phoenicians. Am I right?
Well, the Canaanites were the Irish giants anyway. When they left in the Bible, when the tribes of Israel left Egypt, they went back to the land of Canaanites, and then they had the giants in the Canaanites. Well, Bel is Belenus, Belanus, the Irish fire god. But again, even that story, you've got
burnt sacrifices.
Yeah, we've just had Beltane. So you've got the fictionalized Disney timeline, which goes into Baal and child sacrifice and all the rest of it, satanic worship. That's your fictionalized timeline. Then you can go into your Druidic timeline, which would be Belenus is the Irish fire god. That's why they have bonfires on Beltane. Then if you actually go into, in this theory, the true accounts, the Tuatha De Danann landed on the eve of Beltane, and then they burnt their boats saying, we are here or we die, which is why they have bonfires on 1st of May, Beltane. It's the date that Tuatha De Danann first landed on the shores of Ireland. So that's where the bonfires in Beltane comes from. Then it gets mixed up with Druidism, and you get Belenus, the fire god. And then the Vatican comes in and gives you this Disney fictionalized story of Bel and Baal and satanic rituals. So that's where.
And do you think, Neil, like Hancock and Sagan and the like, do you think that they are aware of it? Or do you think that, with, like you say, they're kind of promoting this kind of Vaticanized, if that's a word, timeline? And do you think they're aware of it? Or do you think that it's just something that they've not kind of hit on yet?
My personal opinion is they've forgotten about it. I said last time.
That's what I was going to.
There's a fascinating documentary, and it's called The Last Druid. Insert picture here. And he is basically the last druid in Ireland, or he claims to be. And in the documentary, he actually says that they go to school for 20 years. They have to be able to remember absolutely every story, every account of everything, and be able to remember it. Because if there was a global cataclysm and they were the only druid left on the planet, they'd still be able to remember it. And if they can remember it, it's not written down in the written word, so it can be altered later. So these druids went to school for 20 years at some of the highest education centres in the country. Then they got divided into groups of 3 and thrown out, basically, sent off on their own. Like we're going to go into later with the Dogons and the Sirius people. Basically, they just got thrown out of Egypt. See you later, don't come back, because then the knowledge could be saved if every other druid got killed in Ireland. So what he then went on to explain is, how do you hide in broad daylight? If let's say a certain religious sect was after killing you off, how do you hide? Well, you hide by hiding your history.
Because isn't that what you said here as well? Didn't you say that, like St. Patrick, he was responsible for going over and kind of killing the last of the Druids, was he? Or am I getting confused? It was a massive cull, wasn't it, of the...
It's more of a hiding of history, destroying of history. I mean, the Library of Alexandria was basically a Gnostic library that had all the answers and all the history. So they burnt it down. All the history's gone. So this is what this last druid was explaining, that basically you cannot be found if you destroy all your history. But if you then destroy your history, from that point onwards, you teach everyone this fabricated timeline. That's all they know.
Yeah.
So
he's the only druid in the village. He's the only druid in the village.
Well, the documentary itself looked like it was filmed on VHS or Betamax from sort of like the late 1980s or something. I would imagine he's probably dead by now, because he looked like about 70 years old when he did the documentary to start off with. Or he's gone back underground to reincarnate as something. So again, there's certain parts of this I'm just going to skip over. The Dogons. I'm just going to skip over the Dogons. Megalithic UK did an hour-and-a-half documentary on Sirius, and please give me my life back. He spent the first 20. Well, he spent the first 20 minutes talking about himself. He then spent about an hour talking about the Dogons and only the Dogons, and the last 10 minutes throwing a couple more crumbs in. I think that talk was done about 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it's had 80,000 views. And you came out of it and you went, I haven't learnt anything. So to me, again, when I was talking about layers of schooling, I am presuming that everybody is going to know about the Dogons. So I'm not going to talk about the Dogons. But we're going to go up a level. We're going to go up a level, and we're going to talk about the Sirius people briefly. Everyone heard about the Dogons. 99% of people never heard of the Sirius people. But some of the things that we're going to get from them is jaw floor time. Presumably, that's why you've only heard of the Dogons and never the Sirius. Who knows? The last thing, just before I get into starting this, I will say exactly the same as Atlantis Island. Don't believe me. Just don't believe me. This is just insane ramblings of an old geriatric carpenter. Nothing more than that. If you want to prove any of this wrong, be my guest. Go on. We're all sat on the Library of Alexandria. We're all sat on as much information as you could ever wish to have. Go and look them up. Go and prove me wrong yourself. I'll be fit in the kitchen. I'm not going to stand here arguing with people about this and that. I'm just summarising the work of 5 years, throwing it out there, and hopefully someone might be able to take 1 or 2 words and new bit of education from it, and that's it. You don't believe me? Prove me wrong.
Neil said he should be playing golf today. Isn't that right, Neil?
I should be on the golf course right now. I should have been teeing off, actually.
But we're just bad books already.
Well, luckily, it doesn't go dark till 9:30, so as long as this doesn't take 6 hours. As I
Feel
say,
better now. Don't
I've never actually put this together before as one piece of work. I've never even put it together for myself before. So I might end up boring myself.
I'm sure not.
Yeah, but I say it's always been piles of notes and scraps of paper, and that's what I said. Everything's in my head. To actually bring this together as one presentation, I've never done this before ever. This is only the second time I've ever appeared on a video. So,
Yes.
so excuse me if I haven't had any theatrical training or talk the correct way. But you're going to get what you get. Tough. Right, certain parts of this I went over last time. I'm going to presume that everyone that watches this hasn't seen the first two. So this is going to be a presentation completely on Sirius, and probably about 10 to 15% of it you'll have seen last time we talked. I'll change it slightly. I'll brush over some bits of it, but some parts of it I will have to repeat, just in case somebody's watching this as a presentation all on its own. Get that out of the way, because we're going to start with why Sirius, the part that we went into last week. So why Sirius? Sirius and our sun are binary stars. They have an orbit which is always electromagnetically connected. The orbits of Sirius and our sun create the shape of the Vesica Pisces. So all the time they're coming together, going away, coming together, going away, forming the wheels. And this is called the golden year. It takes 24,000 years for a complete cycle. And we've just started going back towards each other again in 2012. So at this moment in time, we are the furthest away from Sirius that we've ever been. Now, this electromagnetic connection between Sirius and our sun, that goes into what we touched on last time with the electric universe and Velikovsky's work with the electric universe and worlds in collision. If you know that theory, you know all about the plasma events, the destruction of Tiamat, the destruction of Tiamat, etc. Well, that all happened 12,000 years ago, the last time Sirius was back burning everything up and destroying everything. That's when this melting of the ice caps, the Great Flood, everyone went to live underground. That was 12,000 years ago. So 12,000 years later, we're at the furthest point away. Now, because of the electromagnetic connection, for the last 12,000 years, the ethereal energies in the atmosphere have been dropping. Because ley lines are made out of quartz, because our bones are made out of quartz, our teeth are made out of quartz, your pineal gland's made out of quartz, they are all stimulated by this ethereal energy. And if you went back 10, 15,000 years, the oxygen levels were at 40%. Today, they're at 18%. So, as you know, the more oxygen there is, the bigger that you grow. The more oxygen there is, the more carbon there is, the bigger the plants grow. So it's easy to understand that 10, 15,000 years ago, we were way, way, way much bigger than we are now. The vegetation was much bigger than we are now, and we were stupidly more intelligent than we are now. In fact, we're probably at the dumbest now than we've ever been. And we look around at technology, we pat ourselves on the back at how intelligent that we are. And yet we can look back at 10, 15,000 years ago at some of the things that we're finding from back then, and we can't explain how we made them. And we can't make them today. So how did they do it 15,000 years ago with a handful of donkeys and a few copper chisels? It just cannot be done. So this is this hypocritical timeline that you'll be taught this timeline, and then you'll scratch your head and go, well, how did they do that? How did they move a 1,000-ton pyramid and stand it up? And then they'll never be able to answer the question, when you go into the Christian side, every kid who has been taught the Bible has turned around, or every kid in Britain has turned around and gone, hold on, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, David, Stephen, they're all British names. Why are they all British names? And then you'll get some strange answer that never makes any sense. And you've always got to live with that. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're British names. They're not from the Middle East. And now all of a sudden, when you look at this theory, that the Bible did come from Britain, so they are all British names because they were all British people.
Yeah, I've never thought of that. I just never actually ever clicked
You
in
don't
my
think of
head.
that as a kid. Matthew, Mark,
Yeah,
Luke,
no.
John, Stephen, David, they're
I
all
didn't
British
think of it as an
names.
adult, to be fair, Neil. Till
Well,
then, I'm going,
you taught that the Bible, Jerusalem and Bethlehem and all the rest of it are out in the Middle East. So your brain goes out to the Middle East and you're thinking of is Muhammad and names like that. And yet you're reading people in Jerusalem are called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Huh? That has never fit. But again, I'm not going to start talking about Asperger's, but basically a quick summary of people with Asperger's, they don't see grey areas. They don't like grey areas. Everything has to be black or white. So if they see a grey area, one of the a jigsaw piece that just doesn't fit, we can't leave it alone. And sometimes it might be 5 minutes research just to make that fit. Sometimes it might be 10 years research to make that piece fit. So we don't do grey areas. In 2008, see, this one's shocking. In 2008, I was stood on the beach at Blackpool. I used to live in Blackpool. I lived in South Shore and I worked in North Shore. So in 2008, I used to drive up and down the front at Blackpool. One day I'm stood on the beach at the tower, looking straight across Morecambe Bay at the beach at Dalton at Barrow-in-Furness. So I'm stood on one beach, I'm looking at another beach that's 20, 25 miles away. I'm looking at my phone and my phone's saying, if you're stood on the beach, how far out to sea can you see? And the answer was 3 miles. And yeah, I'm stood there looking at something 25 miles away. So that was in 2008, which then ended on turning into 10 years research on flat Earth, starting in 2008. So imagine my shock. And in 2015, when Eric Dubai suddenly dropped a video saying 200 proofs on Earth's not a spinning ball. 7 years I'm into doing this research. So I'm quite used to doing research where I'm thinking I'm absolutely insane and the only person on the planet actually thinking along these lines, just happily sat in my own little field, coming up with all these conclusions. The electric universe with Velikovsky, I'm not going to loiter on that point too much. Other than to say, I had an interesting conversation with a university lecturer of physics, which just happened to be in the middle of a golf course. And the argument I was putting forward was space can't be a vacuum, it has to be of something, because he was saying that you can't have an electric universe because a light particle cannot travel through a vacuum. So then we had an argument about what a vacuum is and can space be a vacuum. Eventually, using their own science, their own logic and all the rest of it, a very brief summary, they made a vacuum chamber to test spacesuits in the vacuum of low Earth's orbit, which is 10 to the minus 8 tour. And they needed 8 foot of concrete to withstand 10 to the minus 8 tour and 1 bar air pressure on the other side. Because these pressures want to equalize all the time. And they needed 8 foot of concrete to withstand those 2 pressures of low Earth's orbit and normal atmospheric pressure. 8 foot of concrete. So why is it the ISS can do it with 3 millimeters of aluminium? They've already proven that you need 8 foot of concrete, and it was still sucking air through the 8 foot of concrete. So they had to put a 12-inch stainless steel liner inside this vacuum chamber to withstand those 2 pressures. And yet in the ISS, you've got 10 to the minus 8 tour on one side, 1 bar air pressure on the other side, but they're doing it with 3 millimeters of aluminium. Bullshit. It's not happening.
There is something that pops into my head when you're talking. It's a bit simple, but it's whether you believe what they're doing with the Large Hadron Collider. I don't believe that space is a vacuum.
It can't be.
I'm fully into the Velikovsky stuff. It explained a lot to me, and I really liked it. And I'm pro that book, Worlds in Collision.
Yep, absolutely.
They create a vacuum in a Large Hadron Collider and then fire neutrons at one another, particles, to break them up to see what smaller particles they can get. And that's in a vacuum. So it's not really representative, as far as I can see, doing anything in space. So whatever the alternative motive is for the thing, and whenever anything's been funded, especially the biggest machine on the face of the earth so far, built by human beings, when it's funded, they want something from it. Whether they want to make a dark energy weapon of some sort, or it's a time travel, or a portal or something, or you're not going to hear that, because the explanation is we're trying to find out how the universe works. But why do it in a vacuum when space isn't a vacuum anyway? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because it supports.
That's what they say they do.
Because it supports this Disney timeline fiction reality that you live in. Anything that promotes that. I mean, we've got producers, content producers now. Some of them doing it deliberately, some of them are doing it accidentally. But it doesn't matter if they're doing it deliberately or accidentally. They're still doing it. They're still promoting this fake timeline, which is what I say. 2 days after the Eurovision Song Contest, everyone's talking about Satanism and Baal and Bel and Baphomet. Well, none of those exist. They're all a Disney timeline. They're coming out of watching the pictures and talking about what they've just seen at the pictures. And it's not real. So anything or anybody that promotes that fake timeline is promoted. So you look at content producers. Have you heard of the Y-Files?
Yeah.
One of a channel on YouTube called the Y-Files. He tends to look at conspiracy theories. I've never seen him produce anything that I didn't learn 20 years ago. Every single thing that he produces goes along with this fabricated timeline. He'll talk to you about Anunnaki coming from space and landing out in Mesopotamia. He'll never talk about Ireland. Now, whether he's doing
that. There's a reason for that, O'Neill. It's all written in Sumerian, and all the artifacts are in Sumeria, and all the knowledge and the papyrus and anything else, the clay tablets that they found are all in Mesopotamia. There's no mention of
this one, Neil. Can I answer this one? Because Neil taught it me. Well, Sumer, isn't it? In Old Irish means dragon, doesn't it? So Sumer is an Irish, isn't it?
Sumer is Irish and it means sun. Comes from summer.
Yeah.
Summer.
But can I ask something? Because I suppose when you say about this timeline, and I suppose I'm just trying to think what I'm thinking and how people watching this that are thinking that perhaps questions they would want to ask. So when we're talking about this kind of Disney timeline, Neil, I suppose, are you talking about it like a split timeline, like almost like a timeline that they want to create as this distraction to the real truth, I suppose? Like if they control kind of our hijack consciousness to that effect, and we're all, it's like what you say with the truthers, something will happen and they all go, they're releasing a new variant, this is going to happen, so that we're kind of creating that timeline for them, and that's the con. Is that kind of what you mean in a simple term?
A fabricated timeline, I mean, it's like having a jigsaw puzzle of the true timeline and then just putting another jigsaw puzzle straight over the top of it.
So like a hijacked kind of reality, really, that we're all kind of creating.
Yeah, that's what I said before about Fomenko. He was right about this fictionalized timeline with all these plagiarized deities, all these people, these countries. They did exist, but all they've done is change the spellings, change the names, and move them all around on the board. And then giving you that back as the timeline that you should learn. That first came in to society really only in 1902 with the Balfour Education Act. So it's only been around for really 100 years. If you went back before then, any school could teach anything that they wanted. And then in 1902, they brought this Balfour Education Act in, which was basically a state education system. So we teach you 2 + 2 is 4, you repeat 2 + 2 is 4, I give you a piece of paper, well done, you've got a certificate, you can repeat whatever it is that you were taught. Well, that's all it is. It's just parroting what you were taught 5, 10, 15, 50 years ago, and then you get taught a simple fact, and then you never question it. So then you just regurgitate that fact your entire life without ever questioning. Again, that's why it was so easy for so many researchers to see the Eurovision Song Contest and then just go and make a video going Satan, 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 because they don't know who Satan is, what Satan is. They got programmed that Satan is some evil dude, it's some evil red dude with a couple of horns, and it's bad. So if they
And I love saying Satan, Neil. So you've just ruined a whole lifetime for me. Like my satanic Tourette's totally calmed down. I go Satan.
Yeah, that's Satan is the Disney version. I mean, if you want to say something's bad, I mean, say you can talk of demons, jinn, archons. I would
Satan. The word Satan isn't a person.
No, it's the jackal.
It simply means opposer. That's all it means. Opposer.
Satan,
and devil means slanderer. It's not a person, it's a title.
Yeah, but Satan is Sirius. Satan is the jackal. Translated, Satan is the jackal. So we're going to find, this is the bit that we're just about to go into now, where we really start going into. Sorry, sorry. This is the bit that we're going to go into now, which is this one. Really is bye bye Kansas, because before we get to the end, I've broken this down into sections. So if this ends up dragging on a little bit, and you want to stop halfway and come back, or you think I'm completely nuts and you just want to scrap it, no problem. So the first half is basically we're going to give you some tools. We're going to teach you the tools, and then the second half is where we see Sirius every day and the explanations and breaking down of things that you see every day that involve Sirius. But first, the first part of this, the first half of this, is basically giving you all the names, the representations, the sigils, anything that is Sirius. So then you will then be able to better understand it. If I then said the Eye of Providence is Sirius on the $1 bill, I won't need to then keep teaching you that over and over. So Sirius has two aspects to it. One of which is the fiery, scorching, killing, destroyer version, because Sirius is 27 times hotter than our sun, and every time it comes back, it burns and melts everything on the planet. Sirius also has a fertility aspect to it, and this one's quite important. So this is why I'm starting with this one. The 4th of July, Egypt. Now, on the 4th of July, on the morning of the 4th of July, exactly every 365.2 days, Sirius rises in the east. So when Sirius rises in the east at the beginning of July, this marks the start of the flooding season of the Nile. Now, if you know anything about Egypt, every time the Nile floods, this brings fertility. This is start of the planting season, the harvest season. So when Sirius rises, Sirius has this aspect of fertility about it, because that's the start of the planting and the harvesting season. So Sirius gets quite a few names from this fertility aspect. So we have names like Diana, Mother Mary, Ishtar, Isis, Inanna, Venus, Ave Maria, Hathor, Sotdet, the Queen of Heaven, Lady of the Stars. So all those names that I've just said are all Sirius, every single one of them. If we then look at it rising in the east on the 4th of July, we get names like the Eastern Star, the Morning Star, or the Evening Star. And if we look at Sphinx, this is where I need a picture up. If we look at the Sphinx used to be a dog. someone's done an overlay of what it used to look like. You know, Anubis. Anubis is
Yeah.
Anubis is Sirius. Anubis, the one with the dog's head. Well, the Sphinx used to be carved exactly like Anubis, and Anubis is facing east. So the Sphinx actually represents Sirius because it was facing east. But if we look at the wear of the stone all around where the Sphinx is, we know that it's pre-dynastic because of the wearing of the rock and everything. So it's 12, 15,000 years old. It's the sort of same age as Göbekli Tepe, that sort of time period. That's pre-dynastic. So Anubis is Sirius, the Eastern Star is Sirius, Morning Star is Sirius, and the Evening Star is Sirius. Right, if we touch on the brightness of Sirius. Now, if you look into the sky, I don't know if you know where Sirius is. If you look up, it's quite easy to find.
Just below Orion's belt.
That's right. Just below and to the left of Orion's belt. Is it the second or third brightest star in the sky?
Yeah.
You can't miss it. Just look for Orion's belt and it's
Canis Major.
Yeah, that's the one. So Sirius is also called the red dragon and the blue dragon, but I'll come back into that when we start talking about the Doppler effect. My favorite is the Scorcher. It's also called Shiva the Destroyer, the Divine Sun, the brilliant star of sensitivity. This one is for Jason and all the Archaics fans. It is also called the Rainbow Star, aka the Phoenix. Now I know Jason's got a theory running with this cyclical destruction thing, and he calls it the Phoenix event, and he just keeps calling it the Phoenix event, Phoenix event, Phoenix event, until he actually banned me off his channel because I kept asking him what the Phoenix was, and he wouldn't answer it. But if you look, if you look at
controversial, I like it.
I did it. I've offered him all this, and he just banned me. So this is why I would also say that Jason's into this fabricated timeline because he believes every word that the Bible says is true, and the Bible comes from Rome. When if we look down this theory, the Bible doesn't come from Rome, and it's just a compilation of lots of other religious works.
You mean the New Testament?
Say again.
You mean the New Testament, not the whole of the Bible? Since it's pretty Semitic. A lot of the tales come from Samaria and in the Talmud.
The New Testament, yeah, because I've got the Old Testament, the jealous, murderous God in the Old Testament is actually the demiurge from Gnosticism.
That's right.
All religions and mystery schools are based on Gnosticism when you root down far enough. So this murderous, jealous God. I mean, when's God been jealous? When does God need to say don't worship any other god than me? Well, there aren't any other gods than God, so you have to worship God. But if you then go and read about this murderous, jealous God in the Old Testament, and then look and then understand about Gnosticism, it's easy to understand that is it Yahweh? Is it called in the Old Testament? Well, yeah. Well, that'd be the demiurge in Gnosticism.
It's in Gnosticism, that is.
Yeah,
so it's different again in the Law of One, so it's a similar kind of thing that Yahweh was the creator of this world, yeah. But he was more benevolent in the I think he's been misrepresented here, but that's just the Law of One, that's a different egg.
The problem with it is that, sorry to interrupt, it was the Israeli nation at the time, whatever you call them, the Jews. They were all worshipping Asherah, and they had temples to her on every high hill and in every cave and every place. And it was a nurturing goddess from Samaria that they all loved. And it was King Josiah, under his father, but him mainly, that decided he'd found a book called the Laws of Yahweh, or the Book of the Laws of Yahweh. He destroyed every temple and everything that had to do with Asherah, banned the whole nation from worshipping her, and placed this Yahweh character on top of it. And even where it was mentioned in old tales, this word was put there. And here's a killer. The YHWH or JHVH, which has no vowels, so you can put any combination in it.
Yep.
You could come up with, I don't know how many different names, but is literally not even a Semitic word. And yet there it is in a Semitic belief system. And what he did with that, he then brought in all the tithes to the temple, to himself, to his family, took complete control of the whole nation, made it warlike, and the rest you can figure it out for yourself. And that's where that come from. That's how you get Yahweh placed in there, from Josiah himself. And nobody's seen the book of the laws of Yahweh. They don't even know if it exists.
Just to add on to another little bit onto that, when you're talking about the letterings in ancient Hebrew and ancient Irish are exactly the same language because they're the same people. There was no vowels and there were 16 consonants in both languages. So again, this is why when we were talking last time about LN and DN, lun, dun, the vowels are stuck put in afterwards. So basically you could stick any vowel in there and it'd still be lun, dun, long, don, lam, ban, lindin, but it would also still mean the same thing. So ancient Irish and ancient Hebrew are the same language because they're the same people. It's simple as that.
Right.
And that actually comes from Heber. King Heber was Tutankhamun's grandson. He was king of Ireland after the 7th invasion, but then this is going back into the other talk that we'll be doing. But King Heber was king of Ireland. That's why Ireland's called Hibernia after Heber, and then you get the Hebrews after Heber. So these are the connections back to Ireland. So it's easy for them to move a language.
And the Jews were the U's because there was the J.
Well, there was no J.
Like
there was no J. So you've got the Jews were the tree worshipping U's, where you've got the Cabal tree of life, etc., etc.
Spine of Albion as well, isn't it? That's where that Spine of Albion comes in. And we're interviewing Larry Cypress, who's going to talk about that on Wednesday.
Yeah, talk to Dave. He knows a lot about this.
Yeah, and then you've got the all 33 things and all the rest of it. But then you've got
33 nodes.
Yeah, we're going back into Ireland and Britain, which is the next talk, not this one.
Yeah. Hop on.
So back to me lists. Where do we get up to? Oh, the Rainbow Star and the Phoenix. If you're looking at Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, which I once got forced into reading while I was led in a hospital bed waiting for an operation, there is actually a description of the Phoenix in there. And it talks about it being all shimmery and gold, and it has purple and red and all these different colors in it. Well, if you then go and look at the representation of the Phoenix, it is a gold bird with red and purple and blue, but it's also the representation of Sirius. This is where you get the Rainbow Star from. So the Rainbow Star and the Phoenix are just two names for Sirius that bring about this cyclical destructive event. Jason. Next name for Sirius, the Shining One. That's a good one. The Shining One. Then you get to play with things when you understand it. I mean, you have to look at the word Sirius itself. If you break it down to Sirius, S-I-R-I-U-S, Sirius, well, the first thing I spotted then was C, S-I, and that means yes in Spanish. So then if you go into translate, does Rius mean anything in Spanish? And it just happens to mean a ray, a beam of light, or a thunderbolt. Lucifer. So those are to do with the fertility aspect and the brightness of it. Now we're going to move into the more hidden occult descriptions, names of Sirius. So we'll start off with Shiva the Destroyer. We all know Shiva Destroyer, the one outside CERN doing that's the one. Well, that
Who needs a picture, Neil? This is me doing this. I've had a bit of humour.
Sirius the lap dancer.
Yeah, well, it's the dance of the universe.
Nobody wants to see that, do they?
It represents the dance of
At
the
my
cosmos.
age.
Right, we've got to see it. Shiva the Destroyer, and Shiva the Destroyer is outside CERN. CERN comes from Cernunnos, the Irish hunter god. Shiva the Destroyer, that thing, that's called the crane dance. And the crane dance is actually what Lu, the king of the Tuatha De Danann, Lu, master of all the arts, he did the crane dance before the second battle of Moytura, before killing Balor. So that actual crane dance comes from Ireland. So the whole thing outside CERN is your Disney timeline fabricated BS. It doesn't mean anything. To understand the meaning of that thing outside CERN, you need to look back at Ireland and go and look at Lou and the crane dance.
What do you say to the Hindus who have a completely different depiction of that? Because they do. Because I've studied some of the Vedas, not all of it, and I've forgotten more than I know. But it is actually a representation of the cosmos, that dance.
That's what the crane dance is.
Yeah.
Oh, right, I'll make a note of that and go and look at that. That's another cherry thrown in on top. Didn't know that one.
It's not, please excuse me, anything that I say is not meant to be impertinent or rude or anything like that. It's just that I've got maybe what you might be calling a false timeline of information that I've been looking at for a long period of time. This is all new to me. So you'll have to forgive me if I do ask some questions that seem to me, but they do not mean to be impertinent or rude by any of it. It's just that, for instance, I don't just simply take everybody's word for everything. I have to go and find myself. That's why for the last 2 weeks I've been sticking my head into it, and it's incredible, I must admit. And for 25 years of research, I don't doubt that you've uncovered a heck of a lot. The only difference with me is that I throw into it reason and logic and some of the sciences that I think are relevant to your intuition. And the only way you're going to prove your intuition right is by seeing it through to be the truth or not. Otherwise, it's just an intuition without any substance to it. So that's what I do, and that's my approach to everything. For instance, astronomy is not astrology. All astrology is basically used to depict mythology in the stars. To like when you're talking about Sirius, I've known for a long time about the Nile flooding, and also in Greek they called it the dog star or dog heat of sorts, and they complained about Sirius being the cause of all the terrible heat that they had. But it's basically just the summer.
Yeah, the dog days.
That's all it was.
That's the height that Sirius gets to. It's in the middle of summer, and that's why they're called the dog days. So when Sirius gets to its highest,
yeah,
that's when it's the hottest. So that's
yes,
when,
that's right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
anyway,
but do carry on.
Yeah, it's no problem. Just to break off for 2 seconds, I spent 15 years working in heavy engineering as a vehicle builder, and I've spent the last 25 years working on building sites. Believe me, there's nothing you can say, and there's no way you can say it that will upset me. I don't have an ego. You might ask me a question that I would expect from someone that's never heard the subject before, because you have your years and decades of education. So that's what you see.
Believe me, Neil, I've had nothing but slander and abuse since I was 24 years old, 22, 24, right up to the present. Yeah. Because of the things that I've uncovered myself, or the things that I've been interested in. Not just uncovered, it was already there. Nothing really belongs to anybody. You're picking it up from somewhere. That's it.
Well,
you can't discover something unless it's there to discover, can you? Otherwise, you're making it up. So basically, you're picking things up and you're piecing it together. And like you said, it's a jigsaw puzzle, and you're doing very well with it. I do have many ideas, though. that you're making me spark off in all kinds of directions like you did last time already.
By the time I get, well, that's what I said right at the start. When I get to the end of this, I want you to be able to remember about 5% of it, because you're going to be thrown that much of it, and your head will literally be spinning with new ideas, new explanations. And like I say, I spent the first 50 years of your life calling Satan Satan, thinking it was a big red ugly dude that worshipped in hell. And then all of a sudden, when you suddenly find out that Satan's just the star Sirius, you do have to reprogram your brain and the way you're thinking. I see the word Phoenician spelt with a P, and as soon as I see that word, I'm thinking back to the Fenians in Ireland.
Yeah.
Automatically, straight away. So it's like he's trying to clear away the picture, this triggered words that you see. And this is why they do it. I mean, the swastika is a perfect example. You show someone the swastika and all they think of is Hitler and Nazi Germany. When it's an 8,000, it's the world's oldest religious symbol. It's 8,000 years old and it represents Sirius.
No.
Nothing more than that. So it's kind of deprogramming. Yeah, it's deprogramming all this education that you've had and putting in the correct explanations. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I had the Book of Enoch on, and it was talking over it, and it also had the text coming up. And for some reason, my brain was automatically changing words that were coming up in the Book of Enoch to Ireland, to the Tuatha De Danann, to Lu, whatever. And then all of a sudden, it makes sense. So when all you have to do is just change a few words, and all of a sudden, all these scriptures and talks and things, all of a sudden, they make complete sense instead of having all these grey areas stuck in around them. Anyway, that said, let's get back on with these names. All right, Shiva the Destroyer. The obvious one, Satan. We'll go into some of the explanations a little bit later. This is predominantly going through the names and brief explanation. So Satan, that can be broken down in ancient Irish into say and tan. Say means the, tan means jackal. So Satan means the jackal, Sirius, the dog star. Lucifer, the bright shining light bearer, obviously Sirius, but again, I'll go back into that one. Now, this I know, this is true. SS. I say the words SS, and you all go straight back to Germany and Hitler and the SS. Well, the SS literally stands for Silver Star Sirius. That's true. That's not something that I've fictionalized. SS, everywhere you see SS, it stands for Silver Star Sirius. In the same way as if you see the letters AA, that stands for Argentium Astrium, because Argentium in Latin means silver, Astrium means star.
Don't mean Automobile Association.
Was what, sorry? I'm going to get back. Yeah, trust me.
The AA, right.
You're already ahead of me.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
This is what I say. I need to put all the explanations of all these names in first for the first half of the talk, and then the second half of the talk is then going into all these things that you see every day. But you'll remember that, oh yeah, I said that these names, instead of every time, if I've got 5 examples of AA, I don't want to have to start explaining Argentium Astrium every time I put the word AA up. So I do. This is like the first half is looking at as a foundation course for the second half. So Argentium Astrium, AA. Argentium is Latin for silver, Astrium, obviously, star, AA, silver star. In the same way as when I said before about the fertility aspect of Sirius, when I said Mother Mary, MM. So every time you see MM, that stands for Mother Mary, which stands for Sirius. And the same with AV, Ave Maria, Our Mary, Mother Mary, Sirius. So MM, AV, SS, and AA are all Sirius. We'll come back to those later. We have got examples to prove it. Names. The Universal Father. That's a good one. Again, one we'll come back up to later. Sirius is called the seventh heavenly star, which is why we get lucky seventh heaven, things like that. But we'll come back to that later as well. The fertility aspect of Sirius is one of the names is Isis. So we also have Horus and Set. Isis, Horus, and Set are all names for Sirius. Al-Shira. Al-Shira is Sirius. This last one is speculative. Ramadan.
Touched on that one.
Well, the first time I saw it was only a couple of months ago, and the first time I saw the word Ramadan, Ramadan. Well, when you've been doing this long enough, you automatically know that M-A, Ma, is mama, mother. In the same way as, you know, S-A, Sa, is the. So, Ramadan. So the first one you see is Ma, meaning mother. The next one you see is the last three, Dan, the tribe of Dan. So Ra is Sirius. So you've got, so Ramadan, translated using Irish, means Sirius, mother of Dan. Ramadan.
Wow.
Or it doesn't. Or it doesn't.
It throws a light onto the raw material there, doesn't it? I mean, is that the serious material? It's like, holy shit.
Half of this I understand, half of it is still a bit of a grey area. Lore. Sirius is also called Nibiru. We all know the story of Nibiru. We get that because Sirius is called wormwood and absinthe.
Mm.
That comes, well, it's called absinthe, and absinthe is made from greater wormwood. So absinthe and wormwood are two names for Sirius. Nibiru is a name for Sirius. Planet X is a name for Sirius. The flying disc is a name for Sirius. It's also called the Green Fairy. Green comes into this somehow, and I haven't worked out how yet. I know Sirius is called the Green Fairy, and presumably that comes from absinthe in some way, because the plant that makes absinthe is like brilliantly green, and it's also called the Green Dragon. I haven't got an explanation for those two yet, but
Green's quite synonymous with Ireland, isn't it? In general, you know, you kind of the leprechaun's always in a little green outfit. Oh, I don't know whether this is connected, but you know, you got the four-leaf clover. Obviously, that's green. Erlingus, that was all green. Like green's quite a Irish colour.
Emerald Isle.
I was just going to say, I was just waiting to say that. The Emerald
Isle, isn't it?
The Emerald Isles. Yeah. Called the Emerald Isles.
Yeah, called.
In the same way as it's also called Land of the Giants. So, I mean, all these people are looking giants all over the world. That's about looking in a place called Land of the Giants.
Yeah.
But again, you're going into next week's talk before we even get there.
I apologize.
Sticking with names, the Green Fairy, the Green Dragon, is also called the Black Sun or the Black Star, or the sun behind the sun. This is the Black Sun, the Black Star, the sun behind the sun. This is because in the occult, these raising and lowering of the ethereal energies, these electromagnetic energies, which is controlled by how close the sun and Sirius actually are. What they believe is that this energy is focused through the sun. The sun is used like a magnifying glass to focus this energy onto the earth. Now, I don't know, have you seen, I keep coming back to this, but have you seen the three-body problem?
I've started watching it.
Right, well, at the beginning of that, she sends a message out into the universe. She focuses it through the sun. She uses the sun like a magnifying glass. Well, think of it the opposite way around. Whereas you've got this behind the sun, you have all these energies going on between the sun and Sirius, and then that is focused through the sun onto the earth. So when Akhenaten said it's not the sun, it's not sun worship. It's called sun worship because that is where the energy is coming from. So the sun worship is just a representation of this energy that is coming through the sun, which is why Sirius is called the sun behind the sun. And again, I'm going to go into some representations where you see it every day to explain that one. Just to finish off this particular section, I'm just going to throw out probably 20 more names, which Sirius is also known by. Go look them up if you want, and I've got one or two brief explanations, but I'll just fly through these. Savannah. It's a record, Blue Savannah. Was it Erasure?
Yeah, Blue Savannah song. Could always whack out the Sirius songs. I've got, they call me Jukebox Jill, it's all in there.
I've got you. Oh, you'll love one section of this. I've just got a big list of pop songs which are all related to Sirius.
I'll sing them all.
Canicula. Kenemet. Prudence. Minerva. This is a good one. We'll come back to this one later. Sirius in Norwegian is called Lokabrennen, which translates to the torch of Loki or Loki's torch. We'll come back to that one. Lokabrennen. Guardian of the Gate. Surya. Sukudu. Nef. Tishtira. Danica. The Wolf Star. Canis Major. Apep. The Celestial Wolf. And we'll save the best one for the last. The Eye of Providence. AKA the All-Seeing Eye. AKA the Eye of Horus. We've already established that Horus is in an Isis, Horus, and set of 3 names for Sirius. So the Eye of Horus is a name for Sirius. But you can group all those 3 in together, because as soon as anyone sees the All-Seeing Eye, it's just whatever particular favourite word that they have to describe that. But the Eye of Providence, the All-Seeing Eye, the Eye of Horus are all names for Sirius. This is again because of this energy thing that comes through with the connection to our sun. So now you're going to remember all those names. Now we'll go and look at some other sigils that represent Sirius. So we'll start off with an quick explanation of the Doppler effect, the red, white, and blue, which you're going to see everywhere. So white light, Sirius is a white dwarf star. It's 27 times hotter than our sun, so it's a brilliant white light. Something called the Doppler effect. So you have white light frequencies come to us. As Sirius moves away from us, those frequencies get stretched, and to our eyes, that looks like it's the color red. So Sirius gets the name Red Dragon from when it's moving away from us. When it's turned the corner and starts coming back towards us, like it just has done, though that white light then gets compressed, and that compressed light to our eyes looks blue. This is where Sirius gets the name the Blue Dragon. So this is where you will see red, white, and blue in today's, well, everywhere today. Predominantly that represents the coming and going, this Doppler effect of what Sirius looks like. The orbits of Sirius and our sun create the shape of the Vesica Pisces. I'll come back to that later.
Is that you mean the 2 circles with the...
Yep, the 2 circles that overlap. That's the Vesica Pisces, and if you were to just simply draw a shape of the 2 orbits, that's the shape that they make.
I have a massive problem with that already, I'm afraid.
Sorry, so, but so we'll come back to that later.
Okay.
Putting down the names, and then when we can go back into these later on. Here's a big one. This is a cornerstone because of how popular it is. You heard of the Dogons, and the Dogons talk of Sirius A, B, and C, and they talk of Sirius A and B taking 50 years to orbit each other, etc., etc. Well, we're going to move on from that. I could do an hour's talk on Dogons, but I'm presuming that everybody knows about the Dogons. So let's look at the Sirius people. Now, the Sirius people, you talk about Satan, and especially when back to the Eurovision Song Contest, there's a big 5-pointed star there, and every time anyone sees the 5-pointed star, all they say is Satan, 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 Satanism, Satan worship, etc., etc. Now, the Sirius people have a 5-pointed star, and this is called the Unir star, Y-O-O-N-I-R, the Unir star, and that 5-pointed star represents Sirius. So every time you see this 5-pointed star everywhere and everyone's screaming about Satan, well, the 5-pointed star, the Unir star, and Satan are just two words describing Sirius.
In Gnostic terms, I suppose it kind of, when they say when it's upright, it represents spirit over matter, and inverted, it's matter over spirit. So are you talking about the inverted or just the shape generally? All of it, whichever way up it is, or
whichever way it is. Whichever way. It's just a 5-pointed star.
You describe the symbol of it.
Yeah, the pentagon, the 5-pointed star is called the Unir star, and that represents Sirius.
Okay, cool.
While we're on the Sirius people, nothing to do with Sirius really. A bit it is. I found this absolutely fascinating. The Sirius people say that their creator God created every living thing on the planet except one. Everything except one. And one guess what this one was that their creator God didn't create.
Us?
No.
Good. Go on.
The jackal.
Right. Okay.
Well, you know, I said Satan is translated to the jackal. Then the Sirius people actually state that their creator God created every living animal and plant on the planet, and the only one that it didn't actually create was the jackal, which sounds a little bit too specific. Just to pick that one, it wasn't even like he didn't invented dogs. It was the jackal. He didn't invent the jackal, that one thing. Which, if you want to go back to the Sirius people and study that one, that's fascinating. You'll also find on the Sirius people, you've seen the caduceus. You know what the caduceus is, with the snake climbing up the branch. Yeah, go back to the Sirius people, because they believe that when the body dies, your spirit goes into a snake, and the snake climbs up a tree. So according to the Sirius people, who have the most ancient of knowledge, the caduceus actually represents the human soul climbing up a tree after it dies. The common explanation of the caduceus is all to do with the kundalini and the rising of this and etc. Yeah, it's got a full explanation to it, etc., etc. There is another explanation to the caduceus. If you go and look at the Sirius people, it's to do with your soul, your car going into a snake after you die, and then the snake climbs up a tree. So that's what the caduceus is.
And are they saying that the creator of everything on the earth is Sirius?
No.
Oh, this is our true creator,
This is slightly separate. These are other things that they believe, which are really interesting. So as I don't. All it says about the jackal and their creator God is their creator God created every animal and living thing on the planet except the jackal. That's all it says. So read it whatever way you want, but as soon as I see the word jackal, all I'm thinking.
Who created the jackal in their view then?
I've not a clue. The only thing I know is every time I see the word jackal, I just think of Satan, because it's tan. That's the translation of the word jackal. But I say it was just a bit too specific to think of every animal on the planet and specifically think of the jackal to say that he didn't create that one.
Because he didn't create himself.
There is no
The only thing I can think there is that when people say, why did God create Satan? He didn't really do that. There's a description in the Bible of how he was like bejeweled and lovely and he was the light and all of it until unrighteousness was found in him. In other words, he created himself to be an opposer and a slanderer of the sovereign of the universe. That's the story. But in this case, what you're saying, maybe if that's related to a Satan or something, that may be one of the reasons why. Otherwise, you might as well say he didn't create a squirrel.
Well, in this theory, Satan doesn't exist.
No.
Well, again, in this theory, Satan doesn't exist. Satan's just a fiction, part of the Disney timeline. Say you want to talk about like the Jinn or archons, yeah, I can agree with those being evil entities living in a different frequency. But words like Lucifer, Satan, Baal, and Bel, they're just the fictionalized timeline. They just don't exist. If you look at, have you seen the sigil for Lucifer, where it's like it comes down and then hooks around at the bottom?
Yeah.
Well, weirdly, the Lucifer is Sirius. But the first thing that leapt off the page at that was the writing on it, because it said Samael Lilith. Samael Lilith. Well, I already know that Sa, S-A, is the. We already know that Mama, is mother. And in my mind, in this theory, El is Elvin. So Samael literally translates to the mother Elvin. And then underneath that, it says Samael, the mother Elvin, and then underneath that, it says Lilith. So Lilith, the mother Elvin, can be read into that sigil for Lucifer, even though we know that Lucifer is Sirius anyway.
I've met her.
Lilith. Okay.
You know, she came visiting me once. Thought, oh, got your number. That's another story.
Right, the DARPA wheel. You'll have all seen this. It's a 6-spoked wheel. It's used a lot in Indian culture. You'll see in culture all over the world. The Anunnaki wearing them on the watches. This 6-spoke wheel is called the DARPA wheel. If you look at Sirius through, insert picture here, because I can't explain it. If you look at Sirius through the infrared, it actually looks like the DARPA wheel. It's a 6-pointed wheel. But unless you'll see the picture, you just, as soon as you see the picture, you go, oh yeah, see it now. But the DARPA wheel has a 6-pointed wheel used all over history. The picture taken of Sirius is a 6-pointed wheel that exactly looks like the DARPA wheel. And this also stands for this cyclical version, this cyclical event, this wheel, the wheels of time. This one's interesting.
There was that Amazon show, wasn't it? The Wheel of Time. It was a very good show, actually. All the themes were in there, Neil. If you've not seen that, you'll probably like it and you'll pick out loads.
I've seen it.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I was watching
it.
I caught that one about the same time I was watching The Witcher and all the rest of it. Again, you start watching these and you end up with like just piles of notes and papers and pause, start, rewind. Oh, did I say that? Take a picture of that. You need to watch these 2 or 3 times just to plow your way through them all.
True enough.
Now we'll get one to everyone's favourite, the swastika. Let's deprogram some brainwashing with this one. The swastika, anti-clockwise, the sun disk in reverse. This is the black sun, the sun behind the sun, so that represents Sirius. We also have another swastika, but the other swastika is going clockwise. So you have the black sun Sirius swastika going anti-clockwise. We have something called the Manjai, M-A-N-J-I, the Magi wheel. Now that is the swastika in reverse, going clockwise. But the Magi is white. So you have the swastika, the black sun, going in reverse. You have the Magi wheel, which is white, going clockwise. And if you overlay one on top of the other, this white swastika and a black swastika, what you end up with is the checkerboard, the black and white checkerboard. So I don't know if that's where they got their design of the checkerboard from. But all I know is if you overlay the swastika and the Magi wheels over the top of each other, you end up with a black and white checkerboard.
Yeah. Representing the white sun and the black sun, having the cosmic cataclysmic dance, I guess.
Yeah. And now we've turned the corner and started going back towards each other and got past 2012. The yellow sun is actually called the sixth white sun. It's not the yellow sun anymore. That was the fifth yellow sun that ended in 2012. But as the Aztecs said, by 2020, the sixth white sun will have taken over completely. So now we've got the black sun and the white sun. He's not yellow anymore.
Black hole sun.
This last one, I'm not sure if it's speculation or my insanity is just getting carried away, or I've just nailed this one. 9/11. We all know about 9/11, don't we?
Certainly do.
Well, there's plenty of theories, and there always has been plenty of theories about the numbers 9/11 and why they used the numbers 9/11. 9 being the end of a period, 11 being the start of something new. That's a possibility. But as this is about Sirius, let's have a quick play with it. 9/11. If I look at 9/11 in Gematria, the 11th letter of the alphabet is K. Correct? So we swap 11 for K. Flip it. Then what do you get?
Put the letter. Go on.
9/11. Change the 11. Change the 11 to the 11th letter of the alphabet, which is K.
9K.
Yes. Flip it.
Yeah.
K9.
K9.
Penny drop.
That took me a while.
I saw the penny drop.
Visualize it.
Penny drop.
K9. Of
K9.
course, yeah.
I'm still reeling from the swastika, actually. The swastika, I know a few things about the swastika, because you'll see a lot of Buddhist statues with a swastika on, usually with dots in between it.
Yep,
which is supposed to symbolize auspicious footprints of the Buddha. Got nothing to do with anything that you said.
Okay.
But that's what I've learned, because I've been a Buddhist for a long time.
Yeah, as I say, I don't know. I've seen the dots.
The Dharma wheel is an 8-spoke wheel with this depicts the eightfold path that leads away from suffering, which I love. But it's a symbol that was hijacked by Hitler and turned into something now that there's no point in using it anymore. It completely destroyed it in that sense, because once somebody inverts something to such a degree, it loses its potency and its power, and then it becomes associated with the opposite of what it once represented. And that's what's happened in that case, from my perspective. This is what I'm saying. It's one of the only symbols that has been inverted. As I was trying to say to you the other week, that languages change and morph constantly. Even the etymology of things can change and morph and become confusing later on. Whereas symbols, it's up to you to depict the true meaning of it. They never change. They just stay like symbolic. But unfortunately, in the case of the swastika, it's been inverted to such a degree that it's removed the idea of compassion into something completely dark, nasty, and tyrannical, which is what the Third Reich was all about. They might not have thought so, but that's exactly what they accomplished. Nothing good at all. Just thought I'd slip that in, actually.
Yeah, I mean, talking about energies and symbols and things, I would say that the energies that you get from the symbols are only related to the energies that you put into the symbols. The
Yeah.
swastika will always be the sun disk. You can put any name that you want on it, but if you don't put that energy in,
It doesn't represent that in Buddhism at all. That's
yeah,
what
well,
I'm trying to say.
this is why I said right at the start, don't believe anything.
It's a simple sigil anyway, if you think. It's not a difficult one to do. It's not like the flower of life, which needs some flipping explanation now,
Oh
or
yeah,
other things. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's a simple one.
but this is
I mean,
where
like a crescent moon, that's a sigil or a representation of stuff. And there are lots and lots of them.
again we're going to go into the crescent moon a bit later as well. But like I said right at the start, don't believe me in anything of this. All this is another option to think about.
Yeah, of course.
I made a post yesterday about 33 and it all being tied to the Kings of Ireland. I might be wrong. I'm quite happy to say that all this is a complete work of rantings of an idiot. It's all completely wrong.
Neil, it's not wrong. It's something that you're presenting. It's really interesting. I don't see the word wrong in any of it. It's just that there are different perspectives and different avenues of knowledge that you can pursue. That's all.
Absolutely.
And you've put a lot of time and energy into this. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not here to put anything down. It's just that I have some things that conflict with a few of your views, let's say.
That's
And
no
I'm
problem.
not saying I'm right either. I
Yeah,
don't believe in the right and wrong angle. I just think it's all very interesting. And the more you can glean from it, the better. I class myself as a mystic where everything we're talking about must be dissolved. And I'm not getting into it because it's too lengthy. But basically, that's where I stand.
yeah. If I could take 10 explanations of what the swastika was, I'd take all 10 explanations.
Yeah,
And then you run it through your own filters of your own education and your own knowledge, depend to say, well, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. I mean, I actually looked at the swastika last night, and I didn't even look at it, and all I saw were the letters SS. You can
yeah,
break the two sides down. You can
Yeah,
actually break that down into SS, which stands for Silver Star Sirius. Uh,
yeah.
but again, they demonize these sigils, these words, so you don't understand what they actually are. I mean, a lot of people actually would actually be frightened to look at the sigil of the swastika because of this programming that they have. Instead of looking at it as a religious symbol, they would see it as a symbol of death and destruction. So it's only down to your own education and your own knowledge and energy that you put into it. The sigil itself is just a sigil, it's a drawing. There's nothing
Listen,
more.
I understand it from a perspective of common sense. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think it's probably right what you're saying. It does represent that, but it's in a different culture and context. That's all.
Yeah. So this is why, again, I was going through those names because sort of every culture, every society would have a different name for the fertility aspect of Sirius. So there isn't just one. So I'll explain that a little bit later when we get to the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Um, I'm going to
it's like my
briefly.
nana always used to say, and I always say it, we're all trying to get to the same place on a different buzz. And I think it's what is that same place, like narratives, languages, they as long as they move in your consciousness and you do no harm, no injury, no loss, and it's raising that consciousness in whatever story moves that, what resonates, or but there is a like we've always said in it, Johnny, we just kind of try and pull that proverbial thread, because the
Yeah.
language and what we all call things in different cultures is always going to change. But symbols, obviously, are kind of the keys to our subconscious, perhaps. But anyway, it's
Yeah.
all super.
Well, personally, I just see this as being a one big video game, and when you get to the end of it, if you've learned enough that you can play the game properly, you don't come back.
I think that
It's as simple as
as a
that.
summary, basically.
In fact,
But some of us come here to help because I'm not from here. I've kind of come down to kind of help this shit show. But I'm hoping I don't have to come back. But who knows?
I think that's why I'm on a mission to learn so much, and then we can get to the end and tick off the 42 negative
Yeah.
confessions of Matt and move up to the next level.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't want to go into melted buildings and underground cities too much because, as I said, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, this is we've moved on from primary school Wi-Files sort of presentations. Everyone knows that there's melted buildings all over the planet. Everyone knows that there's underground cities all over the planet. I'll just fly through a quick list: Petra, Hollow Earth, Alice in Wonderland, Shambhala, Agartha, the Vril. We have underground cities in Turkey, United States, United Kingdom, the Edinburgh Vaults, China, Beijing, Poland, Canada, Spain, Czech Republic, salt mines, USA Grand Canyon. We've got melted
all over the world, then basically.
everywhere. That's what I say. That's it. That's all I'm going to do on that bit. We have melted buildings and underground cities all over the world. If you don't believe me, go and find them. They're not difficult to find. Right, now we're going to get into, I've just titled this as megaliths. So megaliths are aligned to Sirius. Because if Sirius is that important, then we need to find it everywhere. So we find an alignment to Sirius in Göbekli Tepe, which is 15,000 years old. We find an alignment to Sirius in the Great Pyramid. One of the vent holes in the Queen's Chamber is aligned to Sirius. We have alignment in Stonehenge. We have an alignment in Newgrange. The bird box in Newgrange is aligned to Sirius. And
yeah, that's where it's got a light in it. So Sirius passes over that bird box bit, doesn't it?
And it was, they've actually dated it. It was exactly center of the bird box. I think it was 5,700 BC.
When it was built.
Yeah, I think that when it was built.
Yeah,
then they aligned Sirius to being right into the center as a marker. Because, like I say, you can change dates. You can change times. You can say something, oh, it's 4,000 years. Well, if they just knock a zero off that, the next thing you know, it's 400 years.
Yeah.
Astrology and moving the stars around is a little bit more difficult than that. So you can be quite accurate at dating things with stars. So I don't know if you've seen the same video as me, where he put a star chart over the roof box at Newgrange, and then he went back in time, showing where Sirius was, and it lined perfectly into the center of it.
That's right. Yeah, I did know that.
Years ago. Fascinating.
I mean, it also had the equinox in it.
Yeah,
but it particularly had Sirius going right over the bird box. Completely. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
So you've got an alignment with Sirius in Newgrange. You've an alignment with Sirius in the megaliths up at the Orkneys. I would suggest right now that you would probably find an alignment with Sirius in virtually every megalith on the planet. There's a rabbit hole for you if you haven't connections with Sirius and the megaliths. So while I was looking at all these megaliths and their alignments to Sirius, I stumbled across Thornborough Henge in Yorkshire. Now, Yorkshire's called God's country. And if you look in the middle of Yorkshire, you find an earthenworks 5,500 years old, 500 years older than the Great Pyramid, allegedly. It's 3 earthenworks, exactly this, laid out like Orion's belt on the ground, laid out like the Great Pyramid Great Pyramids in Egypt. Only Thornborough Henge is actually 50% bigger than the Great Pyramids. So if you took a spot from the center of the outside pyramids that was 1,000 meters, if you took a spot from the centers of Thornborough Henge, that was 1,500 meters. So Thornborough Henge is 50% bigger than the pyramids and built 500 years before that. If you look at the end of Thornborough Henge, there's a village, a little village at the end of Thornborough Henge. And right in the middle of this village is a pub. One guess what the pub.
Oh, you told us, yeah.
One guess what the pub's name is. The
Freemason.
No. You're ahead of me here.
That was a church.
You're at Hoe Hill. I'm still at Thornborough Henge. The little village.
Freemason Arms.
Correct. The Freemasons' Arms at the end of Thornborough Henge. So, as I was looking for Sirius at the time, and as I knew that Sirius wasn't that far away from Orion's belt, what I did was take a star map, overlay it onto Google Maps, make Orion's belt align with the centres of Thornborough Henge, then went out to where Sirius should be, stuck a pin in there, and then went looking around that area. If there was anything there, if there was a megalith, if there was a stone, if there was an earthenworks, whatever, I was just looking for something that might represent Sirius on the ground, the as above, so below thing. Then we come across, it's the same size as Newgrange. So it's not small. Everyone knows the size, how big Newgrange is. Well, this is the same size as Newgrange. So that's going to catch your attention straight away. This wasn't like a little stone or something. This was a bloody great big hill. So the first question is obviously, is that hill natural? So the only way of proving that is to look at it through a LiDAR and to actually look at the ground itself. So we put it through the LiDAR, put the pictures up here. You can pretty much say 99.9% it's an earthenworks. It's definitely not natural. So we've got this huge earthenworks, the same size as Newgrange, where Sirius should be. And that's called Hoe Hill. And Hoe literally means mow grass. I don't know why it got the name Hoe, but it stands for Hoe Hill. Now, if we look at biblical scripture, Sirius is Satan. Now, in the Bible, when Satan comes to Earth, he has to fight Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael is God's #1 top angel. So Archangel Michael has to fight Satan and send him away to save Earth and humanity. That's what the biblical scripture says. So in this theory, Hill, Sirius, is also Satan in the Bible. So the church builds a church right next door to Hoe Hill and conveniently called it St. Michael's. So, so every now and again you come across these smoking guns, and if I've got this wrong, then so have the church. They've got it wrong as well. Because why would you build a church, call it St. Michael's, and stick it next to an earthenworks if it's not Satan? The land is currently owned by the British Army. Carrick, is it? Catterick? The biggest military base that Britain has. It is on their land. And for the final smoking gun of this one, the village next door is called Downholme. And if we then look at Downholme in Oldie English, down means hill and home means holy. So Downholme translates to holy hill. Next to a
holy
hill.
hell.
Next to a hill. Well, holy hell, yeah. Right next to Satan and Michael.
But didn't they say that Yorkshire was ancient Babylon? Because I know you put a post up in your group, Neil, with the that depiction of Hell's Mouth. Was that in St. Michael's Church, or was that a different church?
York. That was in York.
That was York Minster, was it?
No, there's two actually. One was in York Minster. The other one was in Pickering. I seem to recall was a church. There's a painting on a church in Pickering, I think it was. There's two of these paintings called Hell's Mouth.
That's it.
Which is what you were talking about, hell. But again, in the second golden age, Britain and all the rest of it, is it Wilson and Blackett? They go into this a lot when they're talking about the second golden age of Britain, when York was Babylon. It was York that was Babylon, Cambridge is Troy, Edinburgh is Jerusalem. This is the 500 BC to 1000 AD.
So Babylon is not in Iraq?
No, it's in York.
That's a tough one to swallow.
I just watched his head explode.
tough to
JD Beatty
swallow.
talks. Well, Stephen JD Beatty talks about that, doesn't he? Because he was saying like Chester, Manchester, and Liverpool. That is like, as in, as above, so below our bodies, and the spine of Albion. I mean, and I've only just started scratching the surface of these things, but and that Surrey would be Syria. I don't know enough, but we're going to get him on. Hopefully, if you'll come.
There's still remains of Babylon, and Saddam Hussein was trying to have a lot of that rebuilt.
Well, there is something there. I mean, I'm not saying that no one existed in Greece or no one existed in the Middle East. We've got the buildings there to say that people did live there, but we have no proof that they were called the Babylonians. We have no proof that the place was called Babylon. We call it Babylon.
Me only being
now.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't mean the place was called Babylon 2,000 years ago.
Well, I don't know. I don't. But what from my understanding of things that I've learned so far, all the historical so-called evidence points to it being where it's supposed to be in Iraq, simply because there's ruins there still.
Does it? Yeah, but what I'm saying is the ruins won't have Babylon written right across them. Those ruins are there.
There's a lot of historical writings about it. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, it's in the Bible. There was a Babylonian empire that came from the Middle East. And that's what makes it difficult to swallow for a lot of people.
But, I mean, you can look at the Sumerian... You can look at the Sumerian texts and say, did they come from Sumeria?
Well, yeah.
Did they?
Well, they named the place. It's named between the Euphrates and the Tigris River. That's not in an island, is it? That's what they describe as such. Pardon? They even describe Eden being from there. There's an Eden. I used to live in the Eden Valley. The Eden Valley is up here in Cumbria, and I used to live in it. And I lovingly called it, I'm living in it in the Eden Valley, and because it's lovely. It's a lovely place, and the River Eden runs through it. But it's not the Eden that we're talking about. Somebody's named that afterwards, and it'd be a Christian, no doubt, or somebody from that thing, might even be Roman. But this is what I'm saying about how things don't translate how you expect them to in languages and the naming of places. I'm not saying anything you're saying is wrong, but the confusion for me is a lot of things. I'm trying to figure out where we're going from pre-flood to post-flood, because a lot of the stuff that I've been sent down the rabbit holes with is this, what's it called now? The Book of Invasion. You know about that.
Yeah.
And in the Book of Invasion, it says the Tuatha De Danann were godlike creatures, and that the Fomorians were giants. And there's a lot of this, and it's all mythological. And it's very hard for anyone to distinguish or put together historical facts with mythology. That's why I was saying it when astrology is all mythological. It's got nothing to do with astronomy, which is what I like. I try and look at things astronomically, not astrologically. Now, there's a lot of knowledge in astrology, and there's a lot of occult and esoteric knowledge in it, hidden. And that's deliberate. And this is what you're trying to uncover, I believe. And I find it fascinating. But when you come to chronological time that's post-flood, Babylon is post-flood, not pre-flood.
Yeah.
Everything that we know about like that is
about 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, and Sumeria is the oldest known cuneiform writing that we've got anywhere on the planet, and it's from Sumeria in the Middle East. It's Coptic writing, isn't it? Sort of thing. Prince, what you call it? Not Coptic, the other one. Cuneiform. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, just as a very simple explanation, because there's something in the Middle East named after something in the Bible, that doesn't necessarily mean that was the place described in the Bible.
It's not just the Bible, though, is it?
Yeah, I'm just about to go into that, because if you read Joppert, do you know if you read in the Bible, the Jerusalem and Joppa was a fishing village. And if you read in the Bible scripture says the women went down this path. They went down to Joppa every day to collect the fish and then carry the fish back to Jerusalem. That's what the Bible says. So if you then went out to the Middle East and looked up where Jerusalem is and where Joppa is, Joppa's next to the sea and Jerusalem's 30 miles away.
Right.
So these women didn't carry these fish for 30 miles every single day, even though there is somewhere called Joppa and it's 30 miles from Jerusalem. But
well, if they did, I would have eaten it.
Yeah, but if you then, but in this, if you then look at Edinburgh, Jerusalem, Joppa is about half a mile away, and there's a path that goes from this port, this village, this fishing port, straight into the centre of Edinburgh. It's half a mile away, a mile at tops. So did these women walk 30 miles to go to Joppa every day out in the Middle East in the baking sun to collect all these fish and then carry them all 30 miles home again? Or was that just the fiction that was created? And the reality is Edinburgh was Jerusalem, and these women went from Jerusalem, mile down the road, collected all these fish from Joppa, and then took them back to Edinburgh again, Jerusalem. That makes...
Proceed, sir.
So that's what I'm saying. Just because there's a place in the Middle East with the right name doesn't necessarily mean that that's where it was.
No, but that's what the problem and the issue is. I know that folks are going to have, because their culture and their history is.
But we don't mind upsetting them, do we, Neil?
Well, I say, if you're not going to go around and kick over everyone's molehills, everyone just stagnates. This is, again, the number of times I've heard in the last five, maybe 10 years from researchers who say they're bored. You look at someone from the Tartarian research, because the vast majority of researchers are content consumers. Rather than like you and me are old school, we'll sit down and watch a video with a pen and paper and write all these notes down and then go and research these new words. Well, a lot of research. So if you take Tartaria, for example, how many black and white pictures from the 1850s can you watch of some amazing and fascinating buildings with someone saying Tartaria, mud flood, Antiquitech for half an hour while you're watching 50 more black and white videos? What did you learn from that? And once you've seen your first 5,000 black and white pictures and someone just saying Tartaria over the top, you're going to get a bit bored of it. So the whole Tartaria subject only has a certain amount of longevity. And unless you then kick that molehill over and introduce some more ideas, some more concepts that it could possibly be. So this is why I keep coming back to Tartaria, Tartar, Aryans, the Tartan Aryans from Tara. And they use the griffin flag, and everyone's wondering about the griffin flag. Well, the griffin is used by the Tuatha De Danann from Ireland. All of a sudden, you've now got a vent, an out of where did these people. You've got an explanation who these people are. So this is all about is basically chucking fuel on the fire, kicking everyone's molehills over. And if you've studied your entire life about the Anunnaki, this is one or two more terms or understandings that actually help the whole theory to start off with. In me, it's not a case of proving it wrong. I can say that 75% of the story of the Anunnaki is correct. All you've got to do is move where they landed. Move it to Ireland. That's all you've got to do. And then it makes a lot more sense. But then once you move it to Ireland, the Tuatha De Danann were called the sons of Anu. They landed in a cloud. And when they landed on top of a mountain and brought a cloud, they brought with them 3 days of darkness. Yeah, that recently. Did Trump borrow that one? We're having 3 days of darkness. Well, the Tuatha De Danann brought 3 days of darkness when they landed on Ireland. So you hear all these bits of stories, and it's like they took all these stories in, mix them all up, and then give you a timeline where it's all mixed up. And all we're trying to do is unknot it all with the words that they have given us and the evidence that we find on the ground, because the evidence that we find on the ground compared to the timeline that they gave us make no sense whatsoever. So that's the clarity that we're trying to bring to it. That's all. I'd never say that I am right. I'll say I'm right about SS, Silver Star Sirius. That's right. I know that's right. And Argentia Mastrium, I know that's right. But 99% of this is just pure speculation.